All right, so buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into crypto.
Yeah, crypto.
Specifically, XRP and Stellar Lumens.
XLM.
XLM, yeah, you got it.
Trying to figure out what's going to happen with their prices, right? Some pretty big stuff going on.
Yeah, some major events that could really shake things up.
Absolutely. And you've given me 3 articles from FX Empire, all published just today, January 13th, 2025.
Hot off the press.
Hot off the press. And they give us a lot to think about.
Yeah, where things might be headed. It's not just about, what the charts are saying.
Right.
We're going to look at this SEC case against Ripple, which is huge.
Yeah, huge implication.
And then, what if the U.S. government starts stockpiling Bitcoin?
The strategic Bitcoin reserve. Yeah, that's a big one.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is a lot.
So let's start with the SEC versus Ripple.
Okay.
This has been going on forever, and it feels like we're reaching like a climax.
It's coming to a head, that's for sure, especially with that January 15th appeal deadline just 2 days away.
2 days, yeah.
Yeah. So much hanging in the balance.
Can you walk us through this whole timeline?
Absolutely. So to really understand where we are, we need to go back to July 2023.
Why?
That's when Judge Annalisa Torres issued this landmark ruling.
Huge.
Yeah, it really was. She basically said that Ripple selling XRP directly to the public, those programmatic sales on exchanges, didn't automatically make it a security.
Which was a big win for Ripple.
Huge win, yeah. Sent shockwaves through the entire crypto market.
And, I think after that, we saw XRP get relisted on certain exchanges.
That's right.
Ripple even started, expanding their business here in the U.S.
It was a turning point for them. At least it seemed that way at the time.
But, of course, the SEC, they weren't just going to give up.
They're not known for backing down.
So they filed to appeal in October, which is why we have this deadline looming.
Exactly, setting the stage for the suspense we're all feeling right now.
And then, to make things even more interesting, the SEC had this closed-door meeting on January 10th.
Oh, yeah, just a few days ago.
Just a few days ago. Who knows what went down in there? But the timing is very suspicious.
Yeah, the timing, so close to the appeal deadline, definitely suggests that the Ripple case was front and center in those discussions.
I mean, it'd be pretty strange if it wasn't, right?
Right.
And all of this is happening, while we have this big political shift going on with Trump back in office.
That's right. Trump's re-election is definitely shaking things up.
There's a lot of talk about how the SEC might change, especially with their approach to crypto regulation.
And the name on everyone's lips is Paul Atkins, Trump's likely pick for the next SEC chair.
Yeah, I've heard he's way more, crypto-friendly than Gensler.
Oh, yeah, night and day. Gensler was much more, shall we say, cautious when it came to crypto.
So what does that mean? Atkins might actually drop this whole appeal against Ripple?
That's the million-dollar question. There's a lot of speculation that he might do just that, which would be a massive win for Ripple and probably signal a new era for crypto regulation in the U.S.
It's almost too good to be true for XRP holders.
It would be a game changer, no doubt.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, we've got to talk about this whole thing with William Hinman, right?
Oh, the Hinman controversy, that's a big one. Potentially huge conflicts of interest within the SEC.
Yeah, you flagged that as a key issue, and it seems like it could really change things up.
It's a crucial piece of this whole puzzle. Back in 2018, Hinman, who was an SEC director at the time, he made this statement saying that Bitcoin and Ethereum weren't securities.
Interesting.
Right. And that statement has been incredibly controversial ever since, especially given what's happened with Ripple and the SEC's lawsuit against them.
Yeah, and didn't Hinman have some connection to a law firm that was really pushing Ethereum back then?
Exactly. That's what makes it even more suspicious. He had ties to a law firm that was heavily promoting Ethereum, and then he makes this statement that seems to give Ethereum a free pass.
And wasn't there a big fight over the SEC trying to keep all of Hinman's, emails and notes and stuff private?
Oh, yeah. The SEC fought tooth and nail to keep those documents hidden, claiming attorney-client privilege.
Which seems super shady.
Well, the court eventually said, nope, you got to hand them over.
So what does this all mean for the SEC's case against Ripple, especially if they do decide to go through with this appeal?
Well, those Hinman documents could be a real wild card. They could reveal a lot about what the SEC was thinking back then and whether they were applying different rules to different cryptocurrencies.
It almost feels like, one rule for Ethereum and another for Ripple.
It definitely raises questions about fairness and consistency.
Okay, so we've got all this legal drama going on, but how does it connect to what's actually happening with XRP's price?
Right, and that's where the technical analysis comes in.
One of the articles you sent me uses something called the Elliott wave theory. I've heard of it, but I don't fully get it.
Well, it's a way of trying to predict what a price might do based on these repeating patterns, these waves.
Ways.
Yeah, the idea is that market psychology, like, optimism and pessimism, that kind of drives these waves and creates these patterns.
So it's all about sentiment. Interesting.
Exactly. And according to this article, XRP recently finished a 5-wave impulsive structure, peaking at $2.50. That means it went through a full growth cycle and then entered what's called a corrective phase.
Corrective, so like a pullback.
Yeah, basically a period of consolidation, maybe even a decline.
So if it already had that 5-wave growth, does that mean it's going down from here?
It's hard to say for sure, but it's definitely something to watch. The article highlights a key support level at around $2.20.
Okay.
If XRP stays above that, we might see it climb back up, maybe even break through its old high from 2018, which was $3.55.
Wow, so it could go even higher than before.
It's possible, but if it drops below $2.20, that could be a sign that more declines are coming.
It seems like this SEC case could really make or break things for XRP.
Oh, absolutely. A good outcome for Ripple could be like rocket fuel for XRP's price, but a bad outcome could send it crashing down.
Talk about a nail biter. Okay, so while we're looking at charts, what about XLM? It seems like it's been doing its own thing.
It has been, yeah. While XRP has been grappling with this SEC drama, XLM's been quietly making moves.
Quietly, huh?
Well, relatively speaking. The article suggests that it's starting a new impulsive wave, which means it could be headed for all-time highs.
All-time highs. That's pretty impressive.
It is, but of course there are risks. Always risks.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a sure thing in crypto.
Exactly. The article points out that XLM has a crucial support level at around 37 cents.
Okay, 37 cents. Got it.
If it can hold above that, things are looking good, but if it falls below, there could be trouble.
More downward pressure.
Exactly.
So both XRP and XLM are at these pivotal points with their prices influenced by all sorts of stuff from, technical patterns to this huge SEC case.
Absolutely. I think it really highlights how interconnected everything is in the crypto world, Legal stuff, tech stuff, market sentiment, it all comes together to affect those prices.
Makes you realize how much research you got to do before you just jump in, right?
Oh, for sure. Knowledge is power in this space, especially with all the volatility.
All right, before we jump into this whole Bitcoin as a strategic reserve thing, let's talk about why people are even interested in XRP and XLM in the first place.
Okay.
Besides, just hoping the price goes up.
Right. So at their core, both of them are all about fixing this problem of cross-border payments.
Cross-border payments, so like sending money to someone in another country.
Exactly. They want to make it faster, cheaper, and way less of a headache than it is with traditional methods.
Because right now it's a nightmare.
It can be, yeah. Multiple intermediaries, tons of fees. It takes forever.
Okay, so that makes sense. I mean, that's a huge market, tons of potential for growth there.
Huge, especially as the world becomes more globalized.
Yeah, it's only going to get more important.
And it's not just about the tech either. Ripple and Stellar, they've made some serious partnerships with big financial institutions all over the world.
They're not messing around.
No, they're not. They're actively working to integrate their tech into the existing financial system.
So, it's not just like a bunch of hype.
Exactly. There's real-world utility there, which is what a lot of investors are looking for.
It's not just about speculation.
Right. It's about actual use cases, solving real problems. But of course, there are arguments against centralized cryptocurrencies like XRP and XLM.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
Some people say it goes against the whole, decentralized spirit of crypto.
Yeah, that it kind of defeats the purpose.
That's an ongoing debate for sure. Centralized versus decentralized, there are pros and cons to each approach.
So as an investor, you got to figure out what you believe in and what you're comfortable with.
Exactly. Figure out your own investment philosophy and go from there.
All right, so let's move on to Bitcoin. Now we're talking about the U.S. government potentially adding it to its strategic reserves. This could be huge.
It could be absolutely massive.
Senator Loomis has been really pushing for this with her Bitcoin Act.
The Bitcoin Act, yeah, it basically proposes that the government starts buying up a ton of Bitcoin over the next 5 years.
And it's not like this is some fringe idea, right? I mean, Anthony Scaramucci.
Scaramucci, yeah, he's been very vocal about this. He even thinks the government might buy, 500,000 Bitcoin.
500,000, that's insane.
It's a huge number, but he seems to think it's a real possibility, and he's even hinted that people like Trump, Senator Tim Scott, and Treasury Secretary Bessent might be on board with the idea.
So this is like a real thing that could actually happen.
Yeah, there's definitely some serious momentum building.
I mean, the Senate Banking Committee is even launching a whole subcommittee on, digital assets.
Yeah, and Senator Lummis is likely to be the chair of that subcommittee, so this is definitely something to watch.
This could really change how the whole world sees crypto, right?
It could redefine the role of cryptocurrencies on a global scale.
But let's take a step back for a sec and look at what's happening with Bitcoin's price right now.
Sure.
What are the main things driving it up or down at this moment?
So right now, there are three major factors to keep an eye on. First, we have the upcoming U.S. inflation data.
Oh yeah, that's coming out soon.
Very soon, January 15th, same day as the SEC appeal deadline.
Talk about a busy day.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild one. Now, if those inflation numbers come in higher than expected, it could mean that the Federal Reserve has to get more aggressive with raising interest rates.
And that's usually bad news for Bitcoin, right?
Usually, yeah. Higher interest rates make safer assets, like bonds, more appealing, so investors might pull money out of riskier assets like cryptocurrencies.
So it makes sense that everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens with that inflation data.
Absolutely. It could make or break the current Bitcoin rally.
Okay, so inflation is one piece of the puzzle. What else is going on?
The second thing to watch is Bitcoin spot ETF market flows.
Spot ETF flows. What does that even mean?
Basically, we're looking at whether investors are putting money into Bitcoin ETFs or taking it out.
Oh, so it's a way of gauging, like, how bullish or bearish people are feeling.
Exactly. Those flows can tell us a lot about overall market sentiment.
Okay, and the third factor?
Any news or updates on that potential strategic Bitcoin reserve? If the government starts making real moves towards establishing that, it could be huge for Bitcoin.
It'd be like a signal that they're really taking it seriously.
Yeah, and that kind of government buy-in could create a scarcity effect, pushing the price up even further.
So, lots of moving parts.
Always. That's what keeps things interesting.
It's definitely a wild ride.
It is, but that's part of the appeal, isn't it? The constant change, the potential for disruption. It's exhilarating.
As long as you can handle the stress.
Exactly. You got to have a strong stomach for this space, that's for sure.
Well, I'm definitely feeling a little bit of that stress right now, especially with these big events coming up.
It's understandable these next few days could be pivotal for the entire crypto market. But hey, that's what makes it so exciting to follow, right? We're witnessing history in the making.
I guess so. It's all about staying informed and being ready for anything.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground, but before we move on, I want to circle back to this whole Hinman thing.
The Hinman documents.
Yeah, those documents. It sounds like they could really shake things up for the SEC's case against Ripple.
They could. Remember, the SEC fought really hard to keep those documents secret.
They did?
They claimed attorney-client privilege, but the court wasn't buying it.
And now they have to release them.
Exactly, which is a huge win for Ripple. These documents could shed light on the SEC's internal deliberations and potentially reveal some pretty damaging information, like if they were intentionally targeting Ripple or applying different standards compared to, say, Ethereum.
It's all about fairness and transparency.
Exactly.
So this is a really big deal, not just for Ripple, but for the entire crypto industry.
It sets a precedent. If the SEC is found to have acted improperly, it could have major implications for how they regulate crypto in the future.
It's a reminder that this whole regulatory landscape is still very much in flux.
It's constantly evolving, which is why it's so important to stay informed and be prepared for anything.
Well, you've definitely given us a lot to think about today. Thanks for breaking all of this down.
My pleasure. Always happy to dive into these complex topics.
All right, so let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the potential fallout if the SEC decides to move forward with its appeal against Ripple, and what a victory for Ripple might mean for the future of XRP.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
We'll be right back after this. Okay, so we've covered a lot, like the SEC versus Ripple, the technical outlook for XRP and XLM.
A lot going on.
And we even touched on, like, this idea of the U.S. creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve.
Big stuff.
But what's really interesting to me is how all these storylines are, like, connected.
Oh, yeah. They're all intertwined, you know? Regulatory decisions, market trends, tech advancements, geopolitics. It's all part of this big, complex web.
It can be kind of overwhelming, especially for someone who's, just starting to learn about crypto.
It's a lot to take in.
So let's go back to the SEC versus Ripple for a minute.
Okay.
You talked about the SEC maybe dropping their appeal.
Right.
But what if they don't? What happens if this thing actually goes to court?
Well, things could get pretty messy for Ripple.
Messy how?
If the case goes to the Second Circuit and Ripple loses, XRP could really tank, like significantly.
How low are we talking?
It could drop below $2, maybe even as low as 50 cents.
Wow, that would be like a disaster for anyone holding XRP.
It would be a major blow, no doubt.
But on the flip side, what if the SEC does back down? Like, what if they withdraw their appeal?
Well, then we'd probably see a massive rally for XRP. I mean, it could easily break through its all-time high of $3.55, maybe even go much higher.
Wow, so it really is a make-or-break situation.
Yeah, it's high stakes, that's for sure.
This whole case really shows how much power the SEC has. Like, they can literally make or break a cryptocurrency.
It's true. They hold a lot of sway in the crypto world. Their decisions have huge implications for the entire industry.
Okay, so let's shift gears for a bit.
Okay.
Let's say the U.S. government does create this strategic Bitcoin reserve. Like, they actually start buying up tons of Bitcoin.
It'd be a huge move, like truly monumental.
We talked about how that could, like, send the price soaring.
Right.
But what about the bigger picture? Like, what could it mean for the whole global financial system?
I think it would legitimize Bitcoin in a way we haven't seen before.
Legitimize, yeah.
If the U.S., the biggest economy in the world, embraces Bitcoin as a strategic asset, other countries are likely to follow suit.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly. We could see central banks all over the world start adding Bitcoin to their reserves.
And that could, like, threaten the dollar's dominance, right?
Good, yeah. It might lead to a more multipolar system with Bitcoin playing a major role.
It's kind of mind-blowing to think about.
It is. It's a potential paradigm shift.
But we got to remember, this is all still pretty speculative, right?
Oh, for sure. It's a fascinating idea, but there are a lot of hurdles to overcome.
So while we wait to see how all that plays out, let's get back to XRP and XLM for a minute.
Okay.
We looked at the technical analysis, but what about the fundamentals? Like, why are people investing in these specific cryptocurrencies?
Well, at their core, both XRP and XLM are focused on solving the problems with cross-border payments.
Right, making it easier to send money across borders.
Exactly. They want to make it faster, cheaper, and more efficient than traditional methods.
Which can be a real pain, especially if you've ever tried sending money internationally.
Multiple intermediaries, high fees, it can take days, sometimes even weeks.
Yeah, it's a mess.
And that's why there's so much interest in cryptocurrencies like XRP and XLM. They offer a real solution to a very real problem.
It's a huge market with tons of potential.
Huge potential, yeah, especially as the world becomes more interconnected.
And it's not just about the technology, right? Like,
Yeah.
Ripple and Stellar have partnered with some pretty big names in the financial world.
They have, yeah. They're working to integrate their tech into the existing financial system, which adds a lot of credibility.
So it's not just some, like, pie-in-the-sky idea.
No, it's about real-world adoption, real-world use cases.
But of course, they're always critics.
Always.
Some people say that these centralized cryptocurrencies go against the whole point of crypto, like the whole idea of decentralization.
That's a valid criticism, for sure. There's this ongoing debate in the crypto community about centralization versus decentralization.
Yeah, like which approach is better?
Exactly. And there are pros and cons to both. It really comes down to your own beliefs and investment strategy.
Like what you prioritize as an investor.
Right. Some people value security and stability, which a more centralized system might offer.
Others might prioritize transparency and autonomy, which is often associated with decentralization.
Exactly. There's no right or wrong answer. It's about finding what aligns with your own values and risk tolerance.
It's like anything else in investing, you got to do your research and make informed decisions.
Couldn't agree more.
So we've got these big players like Bitcoin, XRP, and XLM.
Right.
But the crypto world is so much bigger than that.
Oh, yeah. It's a vast and constantly evolving landscape.
Like we've seen all these new trends pop up over the past few years.
NFTs, the metaverse, DeFi. It's incredible how quickly things change.
I know, it's hard to keep up sometimes.
It is, but it's also what makes it so exciting, you know? There's always something new to discover, new possibilities to explore.
One trend I've been following is decentralized finance.
DeFi, yeah.
It's basically taking traditional financial services like lending and borrowing and putting them on the blockchain.
It's a radical idea, but it has the potential to revolutionize the way we think about finance.
It could give people more control over their own money.
Exactly, and it could open up access to financial services for people who've been excluded from the traditional system.
But it's also, like, kind of scary, right? Like, it's a whole new world with its own risks and challenges.
Oh, for sure. We've seen plenty of DeFi hacks and scams. It's still a very experimental space.
So it's important to be careful.
Absolutely. Do your research, understand the risks, and never invest more than you can afford to lose.
It's high risk, high reward.
Exactly. But for those who are willing to do their homework, DeFi offers a glimpse into a potential future of finance that's more open, transparent, and accessible.
It's definitely something to watch.
It is. I think DeFi is just one example of how crypto is pushing the boundaries of what's possible and challenging the status quo.
It's all about innovation and disruption.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this space so compelling. It's not just about making money. It's about exploring new ideas and building a better financial system.
I like that. Building a better system. That's a good way to put it.
It's a long road ahead, but I think we're headed in the right direction.
All right, so we've really dug into XRP and XLM, all the ups and downs, the SEC case, everything.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
We even talked about like this crazy idea of the U.S. government hoarding Bitcoin.
The strategic Bitcoin reserve.
Yeah, but before we wrap this whole thing up, I want to go back to that inflation data we talked about.
Right, coming out on January 15th.
Same day as the SEC appeal deadline.
Talk about a day, huh?
Yeah, like a double whammy, right?
Exactly. Two major events that could really shake things up, especially for Bitcoin.
So let's break it down. Like, what are the different scenarios? What could happen to Bitcoin's price?
Okay, so let's start with the inflation data.
Okay.
Worst case scenario. The numbers come in hot, like way hotter than expected. Meaning inflation is stickier than we thought, harder to control.
And that would probably make the Fed, freak out a bit.
Yeah, it could push them to raise interest rates faster or higher than the market expects.
And you said before that higher interest rates aren't good for, like, risky assets like Bitcoin.
Right, generally not.
Can you remind me why that is again?
Sure, so when interest rates go up, safer assets, like bonds, start to look more appealing to investors.
Because they offer a guaranteed return.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So investors might start pulling money out of riskier investments, like cryptocurrencies, to chase those safer returns.
So that would, like, put downward pressure on Bitcoin's price.
Yeah, that's the idea.
So in this scenario, inflation is high, the Fed gets all hawkish.
Right.
What happens to Bitcoin?
Well, we could see it drop below that key support level, the one around $90,742 that we mentioned earlier.
Right.
It all comes down to market sentiment, really.
So if people are scared,
They sell.
they sell. Okay.
And that can lead to a pretty steep decline.
Ouch. Okay, so that's the bad news.
Yeah, not ideal.
But let's talk about the good news. Like, what if inflation is actually cooling down?
Now, that would be a different story.
Good story.
Yeah, if inflation comes in lower than expected, it gives the Fed more room to maneuver.
So they might not have to be so aggressive with raising rates.
Exactly. They might slow down the pace or even pause the hikes altogether.
And that would be good for Bitcoin.
It would be very good. It would create a more favorable environment for risk assets in general.
So people would feel more confident, more willing to invest in crypto.
Exactly.
And if that happens at the same time as, like, some positive news about this strategic Bitcoin reserve,
Oh, then things could get really interesting.
Bitcoin could go to the moon.
It's definitely possible. I mean, we're talking about a potential confluence of bullish factors.
Wow.
Yeah, it's all about the interplay between macroeconomics, monetary policy, and investor sentiment.
It's crazy how all these things are connected.
Right. Crypto doesn't exist in a bubble. It's influenced by all these external forces.
It's a global thing.
It is, and
Yeah.
I think we're only just beginning to understand how interconnected it all really is.
All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
We've talked about all sorts of stuff today, price predictions, legal battles, all that.
It's been a whirlwind.
But beyond all that, beyond the specifics,
Yeah.
I think the biggest takeaway is that cryptocurrency, it's not just a fad anymore.
It's here to stay.
It's a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. It's changing the world as we know it.
Disrupting industries, challenging the way we think about money.
Empowering individuals.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you're, like, a seasoned investor or just starting out,
Everyone needs to be paying attention.
because crypto is changing the game.
It is.
And I think we've just scratched the surface of what's possible.
Yeah, who knows what the future holds. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be exciting.
It's an exciting time to be alive.
It is, it really is.
And it's an exciting time to be following crypto.
Couldn't agree more.
So, to all our listeners out there, keep exploring. Keep asking questions.
Keep learning.
Stay curious.
Stay informed.
Because the world of cryptocurrency, it's full of surprises.
It always keeps you guessing.
And the future, well, the future is wide open.
The possibilities are endless.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure exploring these topics with you.
The pleasure was all mine.
And until next time, happy investing.